implements a 300 million transfer overhaul at Manchester United, and that could be a conservative figure. It could actually exceed £300 million this summer very, very easily. We'll talk about that. We've also got major updates around centre-backs. Couple of free transfers that may blow the plans of bringing in a Branthwaite and a Tadibo out of the water. Remember, we've mentioned Rabiot being a free midfield signing that could free up other funds elsewhere. Well, Man United might try it at centre-back as well, because there are 2 free transfers at centre-back that could change the way this summer transfer window works for Manchester United. We've also got an update on Elise. We've also got an update on Casemiro and the striker situation, because I find the striker situation, and I'm sure you do as well, very interesting, that nobody's got a bloody clue what we're looking at, but everybody knows we want one. I mean, Evan Ferguson being mentioned, a very interesting update about him and why that is highly unlikely to happen this summer for anybody. So lots to get into on the show. And of course, overarching all of that, we've got £300 million summer transfer window overhaul from Sir Jim Ratcliffe. We've got £2 billion project around the football club as well, which we'll talk about. Also, Jason Wilcox, a lot of people talking about him this morning and what his role will be. Got to be honest about that. Find it a little bit boring. I think it's a really good appointment, but the day I start getting excited about technical directors and stuff is the day I think I take it too far. We're here to talk about football. I think the director of football is interesting. I think the CEO is interesting, but it's the football team. You know, I'm not having, as I said last night, I'm not going to use the W word, rhymes with tank, but I'm not going to have one of those about a technical director. And I think some people are just going too far. We're back. I think it's a really good appointment. And he's got really good connections. I actually think he's got a really good connection with a potential signing for Manchester United this summer from Fulham, which we'll talk about in a moment. Darren Fletcher will be staying, thank you. I just saw someone in the chat say ABE, anyone but Eric. We don't want that movement coming on. That's a stupidity movement, by the way, because anyone but Eric means that you would take Southgate or Potter. I mean, you're just an absolute... I just don't get on board with that. I really, really don't. Anyway, before we get into all of this, I'm very excited to talk about this 300 million transfer reset, or whatever you want to call it. Exciting to discuss. But before we get all that, exciting to discuss our sponsor this morning, which is Surfshark. Surfshark. It's Surfshark. Surfshark. I don't know how I've got that wrong. We've been working them for years. It is a top-tier virtual private network, a VPN, which protects your online data when you're surfing on the line, or your private messages, photos, videos. But one of the coolest features about Surfshark, and I've mentioned it to you before, is if you're online on a Netflix, or you want to watch something from a different country and you're in, let's say, the UK, on Surfshark you can change your location to New York or Delhi or Sydney or New Mexico or wherever it wants, and your computer will think that's where you are, so you can, you know, search different things, all under the Surfshark VPN. You can also Surfshark on unlimited number of devices at the same time, so Android, iOS, Amazon Fire, also your laptop and upstairs on your TV if it's one of those smart TVs. I don't know what old TVs were. Were they thick then? I don't know. Rubbish joke. But the exciting part for you is that you can secure your privacy with Surfshark and be surfing online in the way I've explained with the code UNITEDSTAND, and with that code you get an extra 3 months free. Links in the description, or scan the QR code. That's right, get premium digital protection for even longer at no additional cost. So 3 months free with the code UNITEDSTAND. It's a great offer, and don't forget to check it out through the link in the video description. Big shout out to Surfshark. So let's talk about the show this morning. We're going to talk straight away about the £300 million transfer overhaul from Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Now, look, I can read the chats. I've learnt to read, and I can see people in there going, what's he talking about? Load of crap. You sit down, hope you've got a coffee, maybe a croissant. You're going to love this, because we are going to see a £300 million transfer overhaul, reset, spend, whatever you want to call it, this summer. We're going to see one, and it could be a lot more. I mean, I think it could go for 100 million, and people will be going, he's mad. He's mad. I know he was on the red wine last night, but it must have been on something else. He's talking nonsense. I'm not talking nonsense. We will see £300 million of transfer activity and more at Manchester United this summer, implemented by Ineos, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, Barada, Blanc, Wilcox, Ashworth, Ten Hag, whatever. And I think it will happen whether Ten Hag's here or not. I think that's the big thing to be said. I think there is an interesting conversation. We'll talk about that in a minute, actually. Let's just talk about the £300 million. So look, Elise's on the thumbnail. Elise's going to cost you 50 million quid. And Manchester United want Elise. So there's 50 million pounds straight away. We can talk about individual players. We can talk about players that might be going. But the bottom line is, Man United have to achieve that magic £300 million this summer. Because if they don't, then we're just the same as we've always been. I don't know the last time we did 300 million. Now, what I'm talking about 300 million here is I'm not talking about a 300 million pound transfer budget, although I feel it could get close to that if we do the right things. I feel that we could spend that amount of money. Because if you think about it, what we're doing here is we're trying to create a scenario where we can buy as many players as we can because we need a lot of players. And the way that Ineos and Sir Jim, I'm going to say Sir Jim Ratcliffe's going to do this, is by looking at players that we're going to sell and looking at players that we then want to buy. So if Manchester United sold Mason Greenwood for 40 million and then they sold Casemiro for 20 million, that's 60. And then they sold Maguire for 25, that's 85. And then you sell Ericsson for 5, that's 90. And then you sell McTominay or Sancho for 30, that's 120 million pounds just raised in sales. Well, you're telling me that we're not then going to spend 180 million on players. Well, that's 300 million quid. And that's what people don't understand. They're talking about, you know, net spend. We're talking a 300 million pound overhaul. And 300 million pounds isn't necessarily spend. So I feel that this could go up to 4 quite comfortably because you are a transfer window. And we need to know this more than ever. A transfer window is not just about your spend. A transfer window is about what you sell, because the more you sell, the more you spend. If we sell nobody, we won't spend 150 million quid. If we sell nobody this summer, we won't spend 150 million pounds. If we sell 150 million pounds worth of players, we'll go north of 300 million pounds in expenditure. I really do believe that. So the more we sell, the more we spend. Now, some people like to talk about net spend, which is what you spend on transfers minus what you make in transfers. So if we spend 200 million pounds on players, but we sell 100 million pounds of players, then the net spend is 100, 200 minus 100. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the overhaul, the over package, the word I can't think of it, the complete package. I've lost some words from my vocabulary this morning. I apologise for it. Hopefully they'll return by the afternoon show. But we have to look at that. I don't want to see the words net spend from Manchester United fans this summer. And some would say, well, you're doing a favour to Ineos and Sir Jim. But we want a clear out. We want a clear out. And if we want to clear out, we need to champion sales almost as much as purchases. Because if we sell nobody, we can't spend anywhere near £200 million because we just haven't got that money to do that, whether it's financial fair play or what. Every player we sell for money increases what we can spend on players. If you want 6 or 7 players in, you need 10 players out. So when we're talking about Sir Jim Ratcliffe's £300 million transfer overhaul, I think for this summer, you've got to add up what we're selling, add up what we're buying, and you'll get over 300 million quid. Because I think that you can sell easily 100 to 150 million pounds worth of players, and I think we will spend about 250. Well, that's nearly 400 million pounds of overall transfer activity. Your net spend's going to be around 250, which I think we were all expecting. But I think it's so important that we work on deals going out, because everybody obsesses about deals coming in, and this is the mistake we've made over the last 5 years, in the sense that everyone just obsesses about players coming in, and that takes time and that takes work. But we really need to be obsessing about players going out, which also takes time. If you want to sell Mason Greenwood, you've got to go and negotiate with clubs. And the club that you sell him to, you've got to negotiate the deal. And that takes time. So I think the whole package this summer, it's really important, whether you're pro Ineos, against Ineos, sat on the fence with Ineos, whatever. I think it's really important to factor in sales, because they will boost what we can spend. And I think the combined of the two needs to be taken into account because of the sheer volume of work that goes into selling players. With the new staff and a new transfer budget, says Space Oddie, I feel like you're being a bit too stubborn saying Zidane is not the right man, but Ten Hag is if we have a shot of getting Zidane to Space. I'm not talking about Zidane. Spoke about Zidane for an hour last night. I'm not talking about it. You've expressed your opinion. If you agree with Space, smash a like on the video. The only problem is Man United never sell well, says John. And no croissant, but I'm eating a burrito at 2 a.m. drunk, watching you in LA, says Eddie. It's always 2 a.m. somewhere. It's always breakfast somewhere. Hi, Mark. By selling Greenwood and players like McTominay, 60 million total, would that further increase our ability, 80 million plus on the budget because of youth, says Sean. Well, you're getting into technicalities there because what you're talking about is if you sell Jadon Sancho into year 3 of a £75 million purchase, whatever you sell him for, you might not get. If you sell him for 40 million, you might not get 40 million off FFP because there's amortization and devaluation and etc. like that. But with somebody like Greenwood, it's pure profit because he's from the youth. So if you get 40 million, it goes into 40 million for your budget. Financial fair play is an oddity, as we know. But it is really important to understand that when you see a headline, Sir Jim Ratcliffe's £300 million transfer overhaul, it's true. It doesn't necessarily mean we're going to spend 300 million because net spend will take away what you earn from that. I envisage this, and we'll talk about some of the news this morning around Tosin and a few other players. But I envisage a scenario where you do sell a Greenwood, you do sell a Casemiro, you do remove Varane, you do sell a Maguire, you do sell a Wan-Bissaka, you do sell an Eriksen, and you raise somewhere between 100 and 150 million pounds in sales. And therefore, that 100 and 150 million pounds goes towards purchases, on top of what I believe is somewhere between 100 and 150 million pounds of our own money. So I think we will spend, I've always said 250. I think we will spend around 250 million pounds this summer on outgoings, not net spend, 250 million pounds on purchases. But I think we'll make about 100 to 150 in sales. So when you put 250 with 150, that's 400 million pounds of transfer activity. And as I said, I don't want people to ignore sales because it's work. But from that 250 million pounds, I would say right back, 2 centre backs, midfielder, winger, striker, 6, maybe a left back, 7. So you're looking at 6 or 7 players with that 250 million. So the higher you go, the more capability you have. And that's how it's going to work. Anyway, look, let me talk about some specific transfer news for you this morning because what we're starting to... There's a lot of developments around centre-back at the moment. And we've even been linked to this guy... I can't remember what his first name is. I mean, we only played them last week. Kelly at Bournemouth. He's out of contract. He's 25. We've been linked to him on a free transfer because he's out of contract. I think we've been linked to him because Newcastle like him and Eddie Howe spoke about him and it's Dan Ashworth. We've been linked to Tosin at Fulham, who is out of contract, who funnily enough was at Man City's youth team with Jason Wilcox. So I'm starting... Look, I'm not the director of football. Certainly not the CEO. And there are people out there that want to profess to you what we are and what we are and are not going to do in this summer transfer window. You will get people saying Man United are very interested in this player, and you know you'll get retweets from it, and people will go, "Oh, you're in the know." They're not in the know. Nobody's in the know. Breaking news: nobody is in the know about Manchester United's transfer activity. Hot off the news from Fabrizio Romano. I've spoken to him multiple times about transfers on and off the record, and what he's saying is, at the moment, nobody's in the know about who Man United are going to sell. You can pull out 10 names and you might get 3 or 4 right, but nobody's getting a bit of information from Man United's recruitment team and allowing them to put it on Twitter. That's not happening at the moment. It can happen. It can happen. But nobody on Twitter or X or YouTube or anything like that is doing a video or putting a tweet out or writing an article safe in the knowledge that they've 100% got the player. That's not happening at the moment. What's happening at the moment is that United are formulating plans and changing them by the day. Sometimes by the week, sometimes they're sticking with what they're doing. And centre-back is the most relevant position for this at the moment because we know we need centre-backs. It's decimated this season. But I feel that the plan for Manchester United around centre-backs has always been Branthwaite, Todibo, those two players. And the assumption is that you get both, because one's a left footer, one's a right footer. They're both young, they're both talented. You bring them into the club, you remove Maguire and Varane, you've got Lindelof, Todibo, Branthwaite, Martinez, and you build a new future with a younger profile of centre-backs. And that was always considered to be plan A. And it still could happen, and it's certainly something that United are looking at in relation to Todibo and Branthwaite are high targets. But we're now starting to see a little bit of slippage around that. What we're now starting to see is, well, maybe we bring in a free transfer. Maybe we do bring in a toss-in, and we don't get a Branthwaite or a Todibo. So United may well go down the route now of bringing in someone like Tosin from Fulham for free and Branthwaite and Todibo, and then you don't get Todibo and you don't get Branthwaite. And Beth was talking about this yesterday morning about Todibo being linked to Atletico Madrid and other clubs. The problem with that is that I want to run a poll on this actually. I've got no idea what the results of this would be, but Todibo or Branthwaite, give me your thoughts on this. Now, I'll wait a couple of minutes till you've done your poll to give you my opinion. But my opinion is this. Todibo has been wanted by Spurs, PSG, Juventus, Atletico Madrid, Newcastle, Liverpool, over the last few years. There was a story of him turning down Liverpool a couple of years ago. What I'm trying to say about Todibo is he's been massively scouted from the top European teams for the last 2 years. Man United wanted him last summer. We own Nice. And I don't own Nice, and you don't own Nice, but Sir Jim Ratcliffe owns Nice. And Todibo plays for Nice. Now, I'm not saying let's get him for £5 million because we own Nice. Obviously, you've got to pay a fair price. But what I am saying is there's no doubt that this lad is a good player. And there's no doubt that other top teams in Europe like this player. It's an open goal. And I know tossing's free. And I know there are other options. But sometimes an appealing cake is an appealing cake. Eat it. You know, stop messing around thinking about something else. If everyone else wants that piece of cake and you've got you can get it, get it. I just think with Todibo, get it. The price is right. Come on down. It is, though. It's going to be less than £40 million for a centre-back that a lot of people want. And I don't understand how Sir Jim Ratcliffe can own Nice and say, we won't take him to Man United, we'll sell him to Atletico Madrid for £40 million. I just think, get Todibo. Now, if you get Todibo and you don't get Branthwaite, Branthwaite's price is prohibitive. I really like Branthwaite, and I think that the homegrown thing, he's going to develop, he's going to be really good. But we can't pay £70 million for a centre-back. Like, we can't do that anymore. So I know we're looking at tossing, and I know we're looking at cheap options, and maybe they'll steer away from the centre-back solution of buying two centre-backs instead of getting a free transfer and buying another one. And that will free up money elsewhere. But Rabiot in the midfield also does that. We don't need to get a free transfer centre-back and a free transfer midfielder. We don't need to go that cheap. We do need to save some money, but we don't need... I think at centre-back, probably buy the two best you can get, because it's so important, as we've seen this season. Hi, Mark. I know you get a lot of stick from the media, but I just want to say thank you for what you do for the community. We love you. Have a good Saturday, says Philip. Thank you very much. I don't worry about the media. I worry about fan opinion more than the media, because for all these gobby journalists, they're on the payroll of multi-billion-pound corporates that don't even support Man United. They're hypocrites, so I don't worry about the media. Hi, Mark. By selling Greenwood and players like McTominay, I've done that one from Sean. So on the Todibo Branthwaite thing at the moment, it's 69% Todibo, it's 31% Branthwaite. I feel I need to just let's just stick with centre-backs for a moment. I think at the moment, the centre-back solution is plan A or plan B. I think plan A is Branthwaite and Todibo, and it will cost you close to £100 million. I think plan B is one of those and toss in, and it will cost you about £40 million if you go with Todibo. if you go with the 40 million option, you've got a lot of money to spend elsewhere. But if you go with the £100 million option, you get two really good, exciting centre-backs. You just need to save your money elsewhere. And we can talk about that for hours. But basically what I'm saying is, if you're going to buy Frimpong, 34 million, 100 million on centre-backs, 134 million, Rabiot's free, 134 million, Alisi, 50 million, 194 million, striker, 40 million, 240 million. So you can still spend your 240 million and get your two centre-backs, your right-back, your midfielder, your right winger and your striker. You've got to find probably 10 million for a left-back, so 15 million. So you still get 7 players for 250 million. The other way of doing it is going Frimpong, 34 million, or another right-back, of course. Todibo, 40 million, 74 million. Free transfer centre-back, Tosin, still spent 74 million, two centre-backs, right-back. Maybe Edison from Atalanta for 40 million. So what are you there? 115 million. Alisi, that's 164 million. Striker, probably another 40 million. That's 205. You know, you've got left back 15, 220. So if you go for a free transfer centre back and you don't get Branthwaite, you probably spend about 220 million on your 7 players. If you get Rabiot as your free transfer midfielder and you buy, you're about 250. Of course, you could get Rabiot and a free transfer centre back, and your spend comes down below 200 million. But I think that I think it's worth spending the money on centre backs. What's your thoughts on Dele Alli as a free homegrown overhaul? Azid, Dele Alli coming to Manchester United would be about the same as getting Gareth Southgate in. I'll leave it at that. Yeah, 69% of you would take Todibo over Branthwaite. Branthwaite's had a bad week, let's be honest. I still think he's a good player. I feel on other centre-back targets, I should give you some updates. It is a news show. Scalvini at Atalanta is a player that United have scouted and are very interested in. I would put Scalvini in the same story as what we had a couple of days ago about Archie Gray. Remember people getting excited about Archie Gray from Leeds and saying United are scouting him, and those people who were saying that are absolutely correct. But I would put Scalvini in the same category as absolutely no chance we'll sign him, but certainly been scouted extensively. Atalanta want to get the Scalvini deal done ASAP. He will stay in Italy, in my opinion. Bremer at Juventus is consistent. I mean, me and Beth were talking about this because she was going to bring it into a show this week, and maybe she did. But we were talking about it in the group chat for the United Stand. And this story broke from Italy about Bremer again. Bremer to Man United is bollocks. It's bullshit. Sometimes in Portugal and in Italy, the story is complete and utterly bullshit. And the only way you know that, and in England and the UK, what I would say is Italy, Portugal, Spain, France is no difference to the UK in the sense that you might have a really good source in the UK, like a David Ornstein or Fabrizio Romano, and then you've got a really bad source like the Daily Star or Samuel Luckhurst. He's better than that. I'm just doing it because he is better than Daily Star. He's not too bad, but as a person, he deserves it. But the point, after what he said to me about me last week, but it's the same in Italy, and it's the same in Spain, and it's the same in Portugal. You get good sources there, and you get absolute shit sources there. But because the British media is very naive in relation to the foreign press, they don't differentiate between what's a good source in Italy or Portugal and what's a terrible source in Italy or Portugal. So what happens is any story from Italy becomes a big story. And like the UK, we've got crap sources, the Sun, the Daily Star, whatever. And in Italy, they've got crap sources as well. So the Bremer stuff is coming from crap sources, basically. That was a long explanation there, but we need to get into that mind track because the summer transfer window is coming. We've been doing this for nearly 10 years as a community, and we know the transfer window like the back of the hand, how it works, what's bullshit, what's not. This is another thing you need to remember. When you hear a transfer story, there are 4 or 5 possibilities. 1, it's true. 2, it's the club trying to generate interest using Manchester United. 3, it's the player trying to generate interest from Manchester United because they want a new contract. 4, it's the agent trying to generate interest using Manchester United from other clubs. There is a fifth, and there's probably a sixth and a seventh. But when you hear a transfer story, it's not because Man United are buying that player all the time. It's because that player might want to go elsewhere and use us. They might want to stay. The club might want to sell him. There's all sorts of reasons. So with Bremer, he's got a £52 million release clause, which for me rules him out straight away because there's better, cheaper centre-backs out there. And two, I think Bremer and his team want out of Juventus, or Juventus want to cash in on Bremer. Either of those options will be the right answer. This is either Bremer's team trying to get him a move, or it's Juventus trying to generate interest, because United aren't looking at Bremer in the way that it's been reported there. Now look, this is going to get clipped up and we're going to sign Bremer. Anything can happen in the centre-back market with Man United because nothing's really been set in stone. But as of now, Bremer's not a real high-end target for Manchester United. It is really just paper news. Anacho would be interesting from Sporting Lisbon, says Florian. And Alagbiar says, I hope Erik Ten Hag stays during the clear-out. Shout out to Niuk. And yeah, well, look, I think that will take care of itself, of course. TBESND, don't know how to pronounce that, says Bremer is good. Whether Bremer's good or De Ligt's good or, you know, this Bournemouth centre-back's good, I don't care. We're not looking at Bremer in the way that it's being reported from Italy. And you can get excited about it. You can say he's a good player. I'm not here to say he's not. But all this Bremer talk is coming from sources in Italy who are doing work for the agent of the player or the club itself. We're not actually looking at him. What about De Jong, says Fid? Look, Frankie de Jong moves us into the midfield really nicely. Casemiro, there are two things going on with Casemiro. Well, there's three things, I suppose. There's three options for Casemiro this summer. And this is hot off the press. It's logical, but it's true. So with Casemiro, there's a huge problem with Casemiro. He's playing really bad. I'm a massive fan of Casemiro, but he's playing really bad. Ten Hag spoke about it in the press conference yesterday. He's absolutely correct. Casemiro is an amazing personality. He is amazingly dedicated to his profession. He loves football. He's very methodical. He's very studious. He's not lazy. He's not got a bad attitude. He is the sort of player that you want in your team. Zidane loved Casemiro. So look, he's a fantastic player. Something's not right. Now, whether he's carrying an injury, whether his legs have gone, I don't know. But it's not an attitude thing. It's not a player going, I'm on 300k a week, let me just take it easy. He's never took it easy in his whole career. Something's just gone wrong with Casemiro. Now, hopefully, it's injury, and over the next few weeks, he's going to get fitter and stronger and become better. That could happen. I think it might. But either way, there's a decision to be made in the summer, because the big red flag is, if Casemiro, as he gets older, is going to pick up more injuries, and it takes him time to come back from those injuries. It used to happen with Rooney. If Rooney was out for a month, he was basically out for 2 months because it took him time to get back to sharpness afterwards. So if Casemiro is going to be out for 3 months, and then it's going to take him a month or two to get back, it's 5 months. And this happens a lot with players as they get older. It takes them longer to get sharper back from injury. United have got to look at that and say, what are the chances of Casemiro staying fit all next season? And if he gets injured, then he's got to get back fit. So I think Man United will look at moving Casemiro on. And therefore, I think that removes one of the options of keeping him. I don't think we will keep him, especially on the money that he earns. So I think we'll look to move Casemiro on, and there will be two options. One of them will be the one everybody wants, which is Saudi Arabia. They'll open him up. They'll welcome him with open arms. They'll pay him handsomely. They'll pay us handsomely, and we'll be able to move on and use that money as part of our budget. That would be the preferred option, but obviously Casemiro doesn't have to take that option. There is talk that Casemiro might, like Varane, decide, and Varane's different because he's out of contract in the summer. We've let that contract run down for some reason. But Casemiro's under contract, so he has power. And if we say Saudi Arabia and he says no, then there becomes a problem. There is talk that Casemiro may not want to go to Saudi Arabia yet, and feels that at 31, I think he is, he's got another year or two playing at the highest level. Because when you go to Saudi Arabia, you're basically retiring, aren't you? So there is talk that while Saudi Arabia is Man United's preferred option because it would raise the money, he may insist on a European move to somewhere like Juventus, where they can't afford 300k a week, and they certainly can't afford to give us 30 million quid. So keep an eye on that, because the challenges of this transfer window go back to what I was saying at the start. We have to take into account the overall spend, the overall transfer spend, and as part of that, you've got to include what we sell, because people say Casemiro 30 million only if he's willing to go to Saudi Arabia. If he's not willing to go to Saudi Arabia, you're stuck with a problem. What if Casemiro says, I've got 1 or 2 years left on my contract, I'm not going to Saudi Arabia yet, I might go in 1 or 2 years. I might run this contract down on 300 grand a week and I'll go in a couple of years, but I'm not going yet. And United have got to be very, very careful about that, because everybody's a director of football without looking at the facts. And the facts are, with Casemiro, is that if he wants to go to Saudi Arabia, everybody's a winner, because we're going to make big, big, big money from it, and he's going to make big, big money from it. But we have Casemiro under contract until 2026, with the option of another year, which we'll never take. But he's under contract for until 2026. So if Man United walk into Casemiro and say, we want to sell you to Saudi Arabia, they're going to give you 600 grand a week, and they're going to give us 30 million quid, we want to do the deal. And Casemiro says, nah, I'm on 300k a week, I don't want to go. United are in big trouble, because he's on 300 grand a week for 2 more years, much the same as Sancho. So if Casemiro then says, I want to play in Serie A, and Juventus say, we'll take you, but we can only give you 100 grand a week, he's not going to go there unless it's a loan where we pay 200k a week, or we let him go on a free transfer and they pay him a big wages. So Casemiro to Italian football or where else might suit it, be a devastating blow for us financially. So we need to start having these conversations. People don't have them because they're journalists who just look at very granular. They don't go granular. They go basic, or they're Twitter fans who don't want to think deep. Casemiro to Saudi Arabia is great if he wants to go. If he doesn't want to go, 2 years left on his contract, 300k a week, what are you going to do? How are you going to solve that one then? How are you going to... It's the same as Sancho. People were like, Sancho needs to go to Saudi Arabia. And if he had, it would solve problems for us financially. But he ain't going to go there at 24, is he? So this is not Ineos's fault. It's not Ineos's fault that this summer they've got to deal with Sancho and Casemiro, who've got 2 years left on their contract on 300k a week, who we need to remove, but they've got the power to say, I'm not going to Saudi Arabia, so what are you going to do? And these are problems. So look, we'll have to wait and see how it develops, of course, but this is what I mean. When we're talking about the £300 million overhaul, you've got to include sales, because the work that will be done on those sales will be as much as some of the purchases. So we've got to put it all together in a pie this summer. Good luck to Sir Jim in the London Marathon tomorrow, says Ian Nichols. Didn't know he was doing that. And why does nobody speak about Thomas Tuchel to Manchester United as a possible candidate? I think it would be absolutely incredible, says Alex. People don't talk about it because he's absolutely shit, basically. I mean, look, some people rate Tuchel. I don't. I really don't. Oh, look, he got a draw against Arsenal and won 1-0. He's a tactical genius. He's about 500 points behind Leverkusen. He's crap. He's a crap coach. He's overrated. He's the German Alan Pardew, in my opinion. I think he's absolutely overrated. He failed at PSG. He lost his job at Chelsea. He's failed at Bayern Munich. Why would Man United go anywhere near a man that's managed 3 big clubs and been sacked? I thought we were going for best in class, not the sack race. Yeah. Just Keeban says Tuchel's better than Ten Hag. Well, that's just subjective. That's just fine. I'm not arguing with you. That's subjective. You think he is. I'd rather stick with Ten Hag. I think why would you appoint Thomas Tuchel? And why would you not do your homework on Thomas Tuchel as well? I'm not tired of it. It's interesting, but it never fails to amaze me how people pull names out their arse, and then I'm not even thinking of those names, but I know more about them than those people who are championing them. Like, we've got people saying get Zidane. They've not done their homework. Zidane took the Real Madrid job because he wanted to help the club out, and he basically worked with world-class players in a siege mentality where he constantly didn't really get on with the board and had his own ideas, and ultimately walked away from it because he'd had enough. And people think he's going to come to Man United, work with no world-class players on a 5-year project with very little control. Never going to do that. That's not what Zidane is. People don't bother to do their homework on what Zidane is as a personality. Thomas Tuchel was a manager at Chelsea and had done well. Todd Bowley came in and wanted to take some of the control off Tuchel, and Tuchel threw his toys out the pram and ended up getting sacked. But people think we're going to bring Thomas Tuchel to Man United and he's going to sit there like a puppet and be told what to do by Barada and Blanc and Ashworth and Wilcox. Well, do your homework on Thomas Tuchel, because he hates that. He doesn't want to be a Graham Potter or a De Zerbi. He doesn't want to do that. So he doesn't fit the profile of what Ineos are building. When we're recruiting a manager, you've got to look at a manager that's comfortable having a reduced say in recruitment. And Tuchel's not one of those coaches. Let's talk about Frankie de Jong. I saw this story last night that he might be available for 55 million quid. I've always felt that Frankie de Jong will wear a Manchester shirt, but it'll be light blue. I think he's perfect for Pep Guardiola's style of football. 70% possession, probe, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Eric Ten Hag would love to have Frankie de Jong at Manchester United and build a team around him. I don't think it's ever going to happen. I think United wasted inexplicably. I think there needs to be a book written about that. I mean, I might be the only one who buys it, but I do think there needs to be a book written about the Frankie de Jong thing, because I remember that summer 2 years ago. It was around, wasn't quite yet, but it was early May when that Spanish guy, I forget what his name is, he got really popular off it, and he's probably still around, but no one ever talks about him anymore. But he said Man United, Frankie de Jong in May, and it blew up from there. And it never, ever stopped. And yet, the amount of shows we would sit there and go, logically, this deal's never going to happen. Frankie de Jong has done more bloody interviews than a film star promoting a new film, saying, I don't want to leave Barcelona. And we're chasing a guy that doesn't want to come, that Barcelona won't actually sell because of financial reasons, that they've got to pay him off. And we spent all summer trying to do it. And I'll never understand why we did it and whose role was in that. What an absolute waste that was it. Gerard Moreno, that was his name. Yeah, it was an absolute waste of time. Now, I think when you hear de Jong's available, you automatically get flashbacks to that. Look, if United could swoop in and get Frankie de Jong for £55 million, I would do it. But swooping in for Frankie de Jong and getting a deal done is just not 3 words that happen. So I don't see United going back there. I mean, look, what you could do is if you want to figure out a way to, make that £250 million spend work, you get Tosin on a free, you get Frimpong for 34, you get Todibo for 40. That's £74 million. You've got 2 centre-backs and a right-back. You spend £55 million on Frankie de Jong. That's what? 130 million. 50 on Elise, 180 million. 40 on a striker, 220 million. And then a left-back. You've got basically Frimpong, Todibo, Tosin, de Jong, Elise, a striker, and a left-back for under 240 million quid. So there are ways it can be done, and that's what I would always go back to that. Always, I think it's so important that we look at the overall transfer fund or whatever you want to call it this summer. and I never would have done it under the Glazers, but I think under Ineos it's so important because there's so much hard work to get players out. And if they can get a Casemiro and a Sancho out, I'll applaud it, because they're difficult deals to do and they take time. Maguire might be difficult to get out as well. You know, McTominay, these deals take time, and every bit of money they get, I think you've got to add it to the spend and go, look, on August the 31st, we've seen £300-400 million of transfer activity, and I think the sales have to be part of that, of course. And also, the second thing I would say, which I think is really important, is for all the stuff out there about United are doing this in the market, United are doing that in the market, trust me, there's probably one or two, maybe three really well-sourced journalists around Man United and transfers, and none of them at the moment would put their hat on any signing. I think you've got what we had on the Hotometer. I think you've got Elise at number 1. I think you've got Todibo, Frimpong, Branthwaite taking up the next 4 spots. I'd probably put Rabiot at 5 at the moment. But how many of those 5 players do I think we will get? Maybe none. Maybe 5. Maybe 3. I'd say 2. I think we'll get 2 from Elise, Todibo, Frimpong, Branthwaite and Rabiot. Because I think United might change. I think they might swerve. They might adapt. They might go, we're thinking of that, let's go to that. I think they've actually got, at last, probably 5 different transfer plans involving different players with a similar budget that achieves the same end, which is very different to saying, I want Branthwaite, but I buy 5th choice centre-back. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is, instead of buying Branthwaite and Todibo, you get Todibo and Tosin, which frees up money to buy a midfielder. I think that's the sort of stuff they're going to look at. And also, on top of that, let's not forget, with Ten Hag, will look very different without Ten Hag. They're constantly looking at different scenarios, and I think so much of it also depends on what they can do on outgoings as well. Every football club does this. United have been terrible at it. We basically don't sell players, do we? But Liverpool will be sat there now knowing, right, we're going to raise this much from selling these players, which we're going to spend on these players. And Man City do it. Even the biggest juggernaut in the world, with the biggest funds in the world, will still go, okay, right, Jesus is going, or Cole Palmer's going, and he's going, and that's going to raise us 120 million quid, and we're going to buy these 3 for 300 million with a net spend of about 180 million. That's what we're going to do. And clubs will be sat there doing that. Man United have never done that. We've never gone, right, these players here are going to go, that's going to raise us that, which means we can use it here. As we see every summer transfer window, it's just happening in front of them. It's not planned. And I think that's what Ineos will bring this summer, definitely. Rabiot's better than Eriksen, says Co. Look, I think in relation to the midfield, the most important thing about a midfielder profile is they've got to be able to play as a 6. There's no point in buying Dewsbury Hall, who's an attacking midfielder in my mind. There's no point in looking at that type of a midfielder. I mean, Coop Miners is interesting. I was watching him for Atalanta the other night, and yes, he can drop into the midfield. Yes, he can get back. But again, I think he does his best work when he's pushing forward. So I think we need to have somebody come in who is not necessarily a defensive midfielder, but certainly can do that job. And Rabiot fits that more than an Eriksen, definitely. Partip says, I'm Erik Ten Hag in, but you're being disrespectful to Tuchel. I don't care, mate. Welcome to the world of football opinion. It's been like this since before I was born. It's not disrespectful, it's just an opinion. I don't rate Thomas Tuchel. I never have. I don't rate him. I don't think he's a good coach. He's like Pochettino. People want to put Poch and Tuchel into the same conversation as a Klopp. No way. No way. If Poch was English and Tuchel was English, they wouldn't get anywhere near the aura around them. I don't think they're top-level coaches. I think they're decent coaches. I don't think they're top-level coaches. And as I said, if you want Thomas Tuchel at Manchester United, you better do some research as to why he lost his job at Chelsea. Because he lost his job at Chelsea because he lost power when Bowley went in around decisions he wanted to make. And you think Tuchel will come to Man United and work under a system that is about taking power away from the manager? You know, you've got to start doing your own work. You can't just start pulling names out your arse. Do homework on manager personalities and then see if it fits with Manchester United. The reason we're being linked to the likes of Potter and Southgate and De Zerbi is they're all puppet managers in the sense that they're happy to work under a system that delivers them players. At Brighton, De Zerbi doesn't buy players. He doesn't sell players. He gets given them. He gets them taken away. That's the sort of thing that Ineos are looking to do. Thomas Tuchel doesn't like that. Zidane probably wouldn't like that. Mourinho would hate it. You know, we've got to start looking at what it looks like's happening at Manchester United. And Ten Hag has spoken about it publicly that he's quite happy to work with that. And ultimately, people say Ten Hag won't like the power being taken away from him. Again, do your homework. Ajax. Ten Hag had a team taking responsibility for recruitment away from him, working with him. Ten Hag is more than capable of working with Barada and Ashworth and Wilcox and Blanc and anybody else because Ajax has had that system for decades. So when you're looking at a replacement for Ten Hag, you bloody better start looking at managers that can work in a system where they do not have lots of power around recruitment and, you know, decision making. There are literally managers out there that have no say in signings and just get given them and taken them away and expected to work with them. So Tuchel doesn't like that. Zidane won't like that. But people don't want to have that conversation because it's too fucking real. But I'm not doing it to be obstructive. I'm doing it because, like many of you, I don't do this every day as a bit of a laugh. I do it because I'm passionate, and I do it because I educate myself. I read a lot, and after years and years and years and years, even before United Stand, of doing that, you start to learn about personalities. Football isn't just a name. A player isn't just a name. A manager isn't just a name. There's a whole repertoire of CV, personality traits behind it. It's like those cards behind me there. You know, what does it say? Pace 64, shooting 38, patience 04, humour. You can have manager cards. You know, if you had every manager and 100 was transfer control, 100. That means they absolutely want to be involved with transfer talk and they want to have a massive say on it. Man United are probably looking for somebody who's about 40 on transfer control. Does Nagelsmann have Champions League? Simple answer, yes or no, says Partep. Mate, that argument that you're throwing up there is because you've lost. I've just spent 5 minutes answering your question about personality traits, and because you like Tuchel, you've just decided to do what I see a lot of people do online. They completely dismiss a factual breakdown of why Tuchel at Man United probably doesn't work, and you've compared him to Nagelsmann and whether he's won a Champions League. How does that answer anything I've just said about actual homework on his personality? You are somebody, and there's a lot of you, who see a name, see a player, and go, that's what it is. That's what it is. And what's the relevance of Nagelsmann winning a Champions League over Tuchel winning a Champions League over Nagelsmann? Does that mean that Tuchel's better than Nagelsmann because he won the Champions League? Roberto Di Matteo won the Champions League with Chelsea. Arteta's not. Maybe Arsenal should sack Arteta and bring Di Matteo back from wherever he is. Like, if football was that simple, mate, you'd be sat doing this. Ten Hag has to like it. He doesn't have to have a leg to stand on. Had results been better, he wouldn't sign up to that model, says Charlie. I disagree, Charlie. I disagree. I think when Ineos buy the football club and they want to build the football club in their vision, it doesn't matter how good the results are for Ten Hag. If I buy Liverpool, which I never would, and I walk in and Jurgen Klopp says, I don't like what I'm hearing about you choosing director of footballs and having a strategic board around transfers. Look at how successful I've been here. And I say, Jurgen, I think you're one of the best managers in the world. I want you to stay here. But I'm telling you, you're not having as big a say on transfers anymore. You'll have a say, but we're doing this by committee. This is how we're going to do it. Doesn't matter what his good results are. I'm in charge. So, yeah, Ten Hag having better results, I don't think it makes a difference, Charlie. I really don't. I think Ineos have come in with an idea of how they're going to do it. They're very strategic. Look at Sir David Brailsford. I don't think if Ten Hag had us in a title race, it would make any difference. I think that, and ultimately, that's a ridiculous hypothetical, because how would you be in a title race with this squad? And if you had a squad that was in a title race, then the Glazers wouldn't have sold to Ineos anyway. So we're walking down an avenue that that is too hypothetical. But Ineos have got their ideas, and they're not going to change them for anybody. Oscar says that Tuchel is a magician as for game tactics, but always falls out with players. He's an anti-Ancelotti, says Oscar. You just can't take opinion. Apart if I can, I've spoken 5 minutes about your opinion, so I think we need to just start ignoring you. I don't think Tuchel is a magician at all. I think he had a very niche period at Chelsea where he did really well. He stopped Man City winning a treble. I'll always be grateful for that. But he's had too many failings. Too many failings. It's gone very wrong for him a lot of times. And I think he's hit and miss. You know, you look at PSG, you look at how he fell out with Chelsea. I mean, how do you fail at Bayern Munich? I mean, the guy, nationality shouldn't mean anything, but being German, he would know the workings of the Bundesliga and he would know the working of German football. How does he take the biggest open goal in world football and miss? How does Tuchel take the Bayern Munich job and miss? And can I just say, watch what Real Madrid do to Bayern Munich in the semi-final, and I'll leave it there. Thanks everyone for watching. Turned into, went from an 8 out of 10 to a 9 out of 10. Love that. Love the debates. Avi says, there's a risk with 7 players out, 7 players in, even though it's probably all we can do. Our squad is already thin. It needs depth, not just quality. Forced into another 2-3 year project. Avi, we are in a 4 to 5 year project. If we've got a United fan out there that thinks we're not in a 3 to 5 year project, wake up and have a big pint of coffee. Like, this ain't... Just look at the... Forget the manager. Forget Ineos. Forget transfer budgets. Look at that squad. And if you don't think that's 3 to 5 years away from competing at the top level, then you're mad. You're absolutely mad. Let me just tell you a couple of things about today. First of all, don't forget to check out Surfshark. You can get 3 months free with that. Links in the description or scan the QR code. Second thing, very busy on That's Football this evening. 5:15, Chelsea, Man City, FA Cup semi-final. Has massive ramifications for us. Live on That's Football from 5 o'clock with a watch-along. Straight after that, I'm doing Wolves against Arsenal at 7:30. So there's no 8 o'clock show tonight. It's all going to be on That's Football. So if you want some football chat, you will find me on That's Football from 5 o'clock through till about 9:30 tonight. Take care, everyone. Have a fantastic day. Make sure you smash a like on the video on the way out. Love all that chat. Really, really do. Don't care about, different opinions. That's what it's all about. 69% of you would take Todibo over Branthwaite.